according to this computer. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good part of the day, where are we from? Thank you for joining today's special event at Large Scale Scrum of New York City, the largest, the fastest growing, and one of the most active ones in the world. Thank you for being here today. Again, we have a special guest treating us with her visit, Joanna Rothman. She came back again to speak to us. Thank you, Joanna. Just a few words of an intro about Joanna. She's worldwide known as a pragmatic manager. That's her trademark that comes along with a lot of humor, irony, and practicality. Joanna is also the author of up to 18 books, I think, on various aspects of product development. And her most recent book on modern management Made Easy series, just recently came out. That's from the Chaos to Successful Distributed Agile Teams. That's the series. And also, Joanna is a pragmatic manager that has stuff that she gives out for free. A lot there's out there. So if you would like, you can sign up to her newsletter, as well as keep reviewing her blogs on pragmatic management at the web links that I will be pinging shortly as soon as she starts speaking. So the chat room will be monitored by me to some extent. Please supersede your questions with a short Q, colon, and make it sweet and to the point, and we'll pick this up as we go. Okay. Without any further ado, Joanna, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Sheen, and thank you all for being here. Do ask questions in the chat, and please use that Q. I will make the slides available later. So let's talk about creating a career ladder for real people. This is about vertical and lateral movement. When I started to speak about the Modern Management Made Easy books, and I said, oh, stop with the performance management that's really about managing salary. Stop with performance evaluations, because in an agile team, it's really, really hard to see what an individual does. And that's when people started asking me, so what kind of a career ladder can I have? How do we make allowances for individual achievement versus a team's achievement? And I said, why not just have team achievement as the issue? Well, how do we know how to promote people? So one of my clients actually came to me. I'm going to use the name Bob, which is nobody on this particular call, okay? But the manager came to me and said, Bob is really great at what he does. I need to promote him. I don't have enough slots for principal or consulting engineers, so I'm making him a manager. So I said, why don't you have enough slots for principal and consulting engineers? That's a different problem inside HR. Okay. Why do you want, does Bob want to be a manager? No, not really, but he's ready for more responsibility, and I want to give him a place to go. And so I said, the problem with that is that means the team no longer has a great technical person. And if Bob does not want to be a manager, then the team has a horrible manager. So the team loses in both dimensions. And this poor manager said to me, I know, I don't know what to do. We don't have a career ladder that works. So I am going to talk about these current career ladder problems. We almost always only go in one direction, which is up. And I have a link in the back of all of the slides, to a blog series I finished writing this week. But many people have very nonlinear careers. I wrote about my career, which was, I first was a software developer, Then I was also a project manager for a 3-person project. Then I was just a software developer. Then I was a project manager for a slightly larger project. Then I was a software developer and then a software tester. And then I was a project manager and a program manager. And then I went, then I became a director and various management levels. And then after I had another child, I went back to software development because I was not capable of managing my emotions on that little sleep. So, and then I became a manager again once the baby, let me sleep, all that stuff. So I ping ponged back and forth and up and down. I think that most of us have very nonlinear careers. And the problem with a nonlinear career is that very few organizations have really effective parallel tracks. You've seen the business of the technical track and the management track. You're supposed to be able to move back and forth, but often the management track gets has much more money associated with any various level. So people become managers because they want more money, or that's the only way we have in the organization to to deliver the value of what they provide, right? We provide value in the organization, we get paid for it. We can have another conversation about compensation blocks. I'm not touching that in this particular talk. And all of the current career ladders I have seen, all of them are based on personal deliverables, what a person achieves instead of a team-based deliverable. So in agility, we want team-based deliverables. We actually ask for team-based deliverables, but we reward personal deliverables when it comes to our careers. Not quite working. So in this particular company, they had many fewer principal engineer and consulting engineer slots than they had various manager slots. Now, I wrote on this particular slide a very simplified, and I'm calling it typical career ladder, where people have pretty much personal deliverables in the technical role, and then in more management roles, it's still pretty much individual deliverables or function-based deliverables. And the problem is, if you look at that, if you look at the left column with the technical slot, the technical ladder, you can see there are often fewer roles in starting at levels 4 and 5, and certainly 6, than there are in the management career ladder. So if you want to have more responsibility and you want the money that comes with more responsibility, you might not have the opportunity as a technical person. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it just is. I would like to see more opportunities in the technical ladder. So I already talked about these two big problems where the team loses a great technical person and they often get a person who does not want to be a manager. And the real issue is that management is a total career change, right? So in a technical role, you solve problems maybe with your peers, but often focused on the technical work. Do you need interpersonal skills? Absolutely. Do you need all the things I'm going to talk about? Absolutely. You need influence, you need collaboration, but the focus is on the technical problem. The issue with management is that the focus is on the system. How do people work in the system? That's the real issue. So we move from a focus on technical problems to a focus on the system. And that is a huge, huge change, which is why it's so hard to move into management. That's one of the reasons I bounce back and forth between management and notice that I talked about project management, which is partially the system and partially the focus on the deliverable, which goes back to the technical problem, right? So what is the focus that you want to have in your career? And there is no one right answer for this. You are a different human than I am. I have changed my focus multiple times, depending on whether or not I got enough sleep, because focusing on the system is really, really hard. So that's that's the issue. Now, when I talk about personal deliverables, I think of them as totally anti-agility. So I'm going to tell you in my experience, which I have the gray hair to prove it. This is I don't know if you can tell, not blonde, white. Um, that nobody works alone on any product. At minimum, you have a customer. And with any luck on an agile team, you have a whole cross functional team that works together. They take items off the ranked backlog, they create that shippable product on a regular basis. At some point, they do a demo and a retrospective. All of these things the team does together. So anytime you want personal deliverables, that says in order for me to get my rewards, to get my promotion, to get for somebody to see my value, I have to stop working as part of the team and create my personal deliverables. That just does not make any sense. So when one of the things about an agile system is it's based on short feedback loops. When I'm going to talk about the team working together in flow efficiency in a second, but just think about the feedback loops. When a project starts or when an effort starts, you create the initial product backlog. That means that as and the team completes work, somebody updates the backlog. The team works off the backlog and they get to done and they do the demos. The team releases to the customers and gets feedback. So there are a couple of feedback loops here. And how often can you release to customers and get feedback so you actually understand how does the customer use the product? What do we need to learn from the customer? Right? That's the kind of the big feedback loop. And the little feedback loop is as the team finishes increments of valuable stuff, the product owner can offer feedback to the team. We need inside the team feedback loops. That's with the product owner. And we need feedback loops with the customer. The shorter all those feedback loops, the more agile your system is. Do we want agility because we want agility? No, we want agility because it allows us to change what we're going to do. So the only way the team can really shorten the feedback loops is to work in flow efficiency. Now, there are two pictures on this slide. Resource efficiency is the top one, where somebody gets that first piece of work, they do their part, they hand it off to the next person, that person does their part, they hand it off to the next person, they do their part, et cetera, until the team finishes the work. Now notice what happens here when people work in resource efficiency. You always have to wait for the next piece of work, right? You cannot just start working on the next piece. You either start something and then interrupt it, multitasking, or you have to wait for the person in front of you. If you are the one person who knows something about this particular kind of work, for example, testers, I often find that we have too few testers on teams. So if you have 5 developers and 1 tester, the work is always going to queue up behind that tester. That tester is the expert. Now, the worst kinds of things happens when when that expert is at the end of all the queues, end of all the work. Instead, What if you had a UI person who was the one expert? I wrote about this in an article on my website. So if you have one person at the front of the stream, it's easy to see that the work queues behind the experts. It's much harder to see that when the expert is at the end of the stream. So what's interesting about this is that resource efficiency optimizes for individual utilization, for individual busyness, but we slow the entire team. And when teams work in flow efficiency as a collaborative team, then they finish as fast as possible. Now, does the entire team have to work together? I happen to like that, as in swarming and mobbing. You don't have to have that. You might just have triads of people, couple of developers and a tester working together, right? But that means that if you have 6 people and you have, well, maybe you have 7 people, you have 2 testers and a developer working on one chunk of work, one item, that different 2 testers and developer working on a different item, and the product owner is available to both of them. That team would have a WIP limit, work in progress limit of 2 for their entire team. So they always work in flow efficiency, maybe not the entire team. So let's see what this looks like. So you can see the flow efficiency with the value stream map. This particular team works as individuals. Notice that Sam starts to work on the story alone. He waits, he asks for code review, but he has to wait for somebody to be available. That takes a couple of hours. Dan finds a problem, which is great. Sam fixes that problem while Dan is watching. So they are making progress. And then they have to wait for the available tester. Well, for the tester to become available. So Cindy finds more problems with the test. Sam and Cindy actually work together to fix the code and the test, and then they have to wait for the product owner. That's another 4 hours. Then the product owner reviews and marks the item as done. Now, this particular value stream map might look very familiar to you, but notice something really interesting. If you look at the work time, all the time above the line, that's 8.25 hours. If you look at the wait time underneath that line, that's 10 hours. So people work on the item for just over a day. I shouldn't call 8.25 hours a day, but we can talk about that later. And then they have wait time that outstrips the work time. So their cycle time for one item is 18.25 hours, right? Double, more than double. So, and if you measure your value stream for your items, I suspect that you will also find that the wait time outstrips all of the work time. Now, I have I coach several teams that have a value stream map that looks sort of like this. They work, the 2 developers pair together. They still have to wait for a tester. Then the tester works on that. They then have a wait for the product owner. Then the product owner checks the story. This is better. It's not perfect, because notice that the work time is 5.3 hours and the wait time is still 4 hours. So their total cycle time still is almost twice what their work time is. Is this better? At least the team is working together. So let's start by changing our language. I do not believe in individual contributors. I believe in team members. And let's stop with the word resources for human beings. People are resourceful. People can contribute. People can help other people understand. So they are resourceful in many, many ways. But once we stop thinking about the golden person, the expert, the 10x, all that nonsense, then we are much more likely to be able to think about how we can change our career ladders. Now, sometimes people ask me about technical leaders. I wish I actually understood the definition of a technical leader. So I'm going to use this definition where they lead a team informally or formally, often through influence. And my experience of technical lead work is that they do not do any performance evaluation and they do not interact with other managers to manage the project portfolio. They do, however, possibly do any of the other things, which includes assist the team with its ability to become a self-organizing team. They might even lead some of the hiring effort. Um, they obtain resources, the hard resources for the team. Um, they might offer coaching and feedback on interpersonal and technical issues. So if they focus specifically on technical issues, they might not offer so much feedback and coaching about interpersonal, but that is still all about the system. So I hope I have convinced you that we need much more agile career ladders. So let me talk a little bit about the culture of the organization. So the picture on the right talks about what people can discuss, how people treat each other, and what the organization rewards. And when I think about an agile career ladder, we're talking about literally what people can discuss, what is in my purview as a technical person, as some kind of a leader, and as a manager. Um, how do people treat each other? Do we only cooperate or do we collaborate? There's a very, very, very big difference. And what does the organization reward? The more the organization rewards individual work, the more difficult it is to create an agile system of work. So if we think about the career ladder is where do we hire people in the various levels? When do we promote people, and what are the criteria for the behaviors we want to reinforce and the behaviors we want to reduce? So let me talk a little bit about the behaviors we want to reinforce. And I put agile in parentheses here because I actually think it's much more about any collaborative team rather than specifically an agile team. But let's talk about that. So I just said something that you might not have thought about. That cooperation is different from collaboration. So I think of collaboration as learning and delivering together. Cooperation is when I do my part, you do your part. We might collaborate a little to make sure that it all fits together. But collaboration is really about what my colleague Mark Kilby calls co-creation, co-design, co-learning, co-everything. So people do all of the learning and discovery and delivery together. We also need behaviors around feedback and coaching so we can create psychological safety. If I'm not safe to ask for help, then um, how can we have psychological safety? And if people are not willing to take feedback and coaching and offer it, I offer feedback a lot. I try not to inflict coaching. That's a different problem. But if we are not able to hear feedback, and if we don't feel um, safe enough to offer feedback, we are not going to have fast experimentation. We will not increase the learning speed in the feedback loops. So that means we don't have a lot of adaptability. So if we want to if we want more adaptability, if we want more influence, if we want more ability to ask for help, we need to think about the behaviors we want to reinforce. And that's the picture of the positive, the reinforcing feedback loop on the right. The more we have a reinforcing feedback loop, the more we get more and more useful work. So, for example, if you are still measuring story points or using relative estimation instead of cycle time, you are not creating an easy reinforcing feedback loop. When you measure cycle time and you say, our cycle time, we have a lot of delays. Maybe we can figure out how to reduce our delays as something we do in the next batch of work. And then we examine where the delays come from. We actually look for delays. We use cycle time as a virtuous feedback cycle, a positive reinforcing feedback loop. Now, I am not saying that we need to reduce all the wait time to zero. We might have valid reasons for some wait time. I am saying cycle time is a reinforcing feedback loop that works for all teams. And when we don't think about cycle time as and unfortunately story points relative estimation does not offer any kind of a reinforcing feedback loop, right? So that's why the measures that you take as part of your agile team can help you reinforce some behaviors that you want to see. So here's a very, very simplified agile career ladder. Notice I still have the same 6 levels on the left. The first column is primarily team and product-based influence. The middle column is team, product, and organization-based influence, where you start to look at the system, but you're still focused on the technical deliverables. And the column all the way on the right, that's primarily organization-based influence, where you focus on the system of work, as opposed to focus on how to solve or how to create the system that solves the problems. If people could please manage their muting, I would appreciate that. Thank you. So really think about where you sit right now and where you would want to sit. Because I'm not sure if you want to focus on the technical problems, you and only the technical problems, you will be in that left column. If you want to focus on the technical products and the system of work in the team and how the organization works across various products and across various teams, you probably want to be in the middle. And if you want to focus on just the culture of the organization, and I really don't mean just here, focusing on the culture of the organization is, in my experience, the hardest thing to do. Absolutely the hardest. So that's all the way on the right. Now, I'm going to talk about the 3 key areas I see for collaboration and influence. In the technical header, it's about the code and the product. I named the middle the middle the middle column here the process ladder. I really hope you can help me with a better name for that, because I don't think it's really a process ladder. Maybe it's about the product, but it's the process and the product and the code and the tests, and it's everything we need to create products. So maybe it is product. Uh, Please help me. You might want to wait till the end, but if you have a suggestion, please put it in the chat. And then the right-hand column is about the people leadership, the organization, and choosing the products. So when we clarify these areas of leadership, we create a jungle gym for the ladder, right? So that's really I find that this is really the notion of a jungle gym means we can figure out how we can move across the organization and still offer value. Um, so Chadwick, you'll have to write more about performance ladder because I'm not sure if that really talks about process, product, technical problems, or what. Maybe collaboration ladder. Oh, maybe. Thank you, Wally. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat. So if I think about the kinds of technical leadership, then I see primarily code-based leadership, code and process-based leadership, and then people. So let me talk about influence. And I really like the book Influencing with Integrity by Jeannie Laborde. I think I said her name right. I don't know. Um, She said that there are several prerequisites for influence. We have to show our competence, which sounds, Johanna, like you're talking about individual achievements. Hang on to that. We need to show our trustworthiness. We need to build small wins every day. So, what's interesting about this, you can show your competence in a collaborative team. And often that means when you say, here's how I would approach that. Or if you want, if you're swarming, let me take this piece, and if I have trouble, I will ask for help. But otherwise I will say, here's how I will finish this. And then you come back at the end of an hour or half a day or a day, whatever it is, and you have done it. So that trustworthiness to either deliver or explain why you are not yet delivering, that's huge. Huge, huge. So, and then the more you deliver on a regular basis, the more you build those small wins. So, Jean, I will use our interaction for this. We talked about me doing this presentation. I said, oh, it will be a new presentation for me. It builds off the Modern Management Made Easy books. I'm happy to do this. So Gene had already seen me deliver a presentation. He knew I could deliver a presentation, and then he was a little bit, as I did not say anything to him all the way through these last couple of months, and it took me until last week to actually start the blog post series. I bet Jean was a little bit concerned. Is she going to have anything useful for Sunday? And the answer was yes, I would have something useful for Sunday, but I needed to build my trustworthiness with him again for this presentation. So just because you have influence for some things does not mean people believe your competence and trustworthiness for everything, right? This is all about you build it and you build it and you build it and you build it. And you build this by continuing to deliver every single day, especially inside a team. Now, one of the interesting things about influence is that if we don't have rapport with other people, right, an easy way to talk with each other, we are not able to influence them at all. Right? If I go into into a conversation, I'm going to make sure that person actually knows how I feel. Am I going to change that person's mind? Probably not. So if I go into a conversation saying, what are the possibilities? Maybe we can agree on some short and long-term objectives together. But if I want you to admit that you're wrong, my influence with you is probably not going to happen. If I want you to change your mind, if I say agile is the way to go, we must go to agile without me delivering something every single day, showing you how I have done this, building up to my declaration of agility would really help us. Yeah, that's not going to happen. This I am pretty sure that influence is one of the big reasons we see so many failed agile transformations. We we mandate something as opposed to use our influence. This is a huge, huge thing. And if we don't have mutual rapport, if we don't have a way to talk with each other, if we don't agree on short term and long term objectives as mutually agreeable outcomes, we cannot actually use our influence. So let me talk a little bit about what I think of as team and product based influence. We always control our actions. So we always have the circle of control for us as individuals. Totally reasonable, right? We choose when to go to work. We choose how to appear at work. We choose everything about um, the way we act at work. Some of us as extroverts have things that come out of our mouths. We really wish we might be able to take them back. Yeah, not so helpful. But um, that's who we are. So when we collaborate with other people, we expand our circle of influence. So if I go as far to say a collaborative team, everybody on the team exerts some kind of influence inside the team. Now, the question is, how much influence do we have outside of the team? And especially the more concern we have over how other people work and the effect of their actions on us, the more we might be able, the more that's our circle of concern, the more team and project based influence we have outside of our team, the more leadership we offer. Excuse me. So here's what I think technical influence might look like. So I'm talking about code and project based leadership, um, collaboration inside the team. So you might actually say, I would like to pair with somebody today. I would like to explore this as a mom. I would like to um, see how to workshop stories together, maybe as three amigos, maybe as something else. But how can we work together, right? So that we focus on together work, not individual work. I really like modeling asking for help. And how do how do we possibly experiment with this thing? Um, I'm I will not offer an example here, but if you can stay later, I can offer an example of asking for help and experimentation after the presentation. Um, well, there's something really interesting about being a technical lead inside the team and being an architect for the entire organization. Agile architects have to write code with teams. They have to. Otherwise, how can they possibly know if they're influencing the project for better or for worse? So, the more an architect participates with the team, or several teams, the more the architect builds influence, especially when the architect says, not so sure this idea is working. Let's experiment over there. Now, there's also technical facilitation, which is coaching and feedback about the technical work, possibly about the interpersonal, but definitely in the technical. And I do want to know what I missed for an influence here. Now, for team and product based influence, it's the same kind of questions. Um, so here's what process influence might look like. So if I think about the team influence, um, look to the column just to the right of title, that for team influence, how do we support the team's collaboration? Do we look at cycle time or item aging? Do we want to look at how teams work in terms of their working agreements? Um, do we need to facilitate their working agreements? How about the demo? I see way too many agile teams who haven't done a demo or a retrospective in months, if not years. So how do we help the team work as a team, reflecting and then choosing how to go on from there, and also demoing their work. That's part of the way the process influence might work, might look for how a leader might do something. And again, I'm wondering what I missed for influence. Now, people-based influence looks like culture, right? It's probably some process influence, but primarily around guidelines and constraints. So think about the culture on the very right, where it's what people can discuss, how do people treat each other, and what do we reward? That's that's the idea of how do we reinforce the culture we want inside the team, across teams, for a given department, for the entire organization. Now, what's interesting to me, that the more we exert our leadership, the more influence we have. In a sense, those circles collapse. That our circle of control is a lot like our circle of influence, which is a lot like our circle of concern. And the more leadership we exert, and the more we use it well, that becomes a reinforcing feedback loop where people can say, "Oh, this person is a leader." So let me give you a little one little example from very early in my career. My first job as a software developer was working on a telephone switch for the Department of Defense. I had no idea what a telephone switch did. I didn't know that at all. So I had to learn the domain in order to write the code, right? I needed to understand the problems I was supposed to solve before I could do the design and write the code. So as I as I created more little notes in my engineering notebook, I realized, no, I could actually write up a little kind of workbook for new people, because we were always hiring new people and they didn't know about telephone systems either. By the time I left, we had a little 25-page workbook with definitions and some pictures of how things worked. I was a lowly software engineer. I was not a senior engineer. I was not a principal or consulting engineer. I was just a software engineer. I did not intentionally exert my leadership, but I did exert leadership, and I had a lot more influence across the organization. People came to me and asked me questions. I'd only been there a year. The last I knew, they had added on to that little workbook, and they now had a 50 or 60-page workbook for people who joined the product for years and years after I left. Now, this is not to say I'm so wonderful. I have many failings as a human. However, that was a form of technical leadership that was not particularly a part of my job, but extended my influence over the entire organization in a technical form. So, what's really interesting is that influence can work at all levels, because if we build rapport with other people, we show our competence, and we work together, then we can achieve shared goals and achievements. And that's how the career ladder can really work. So I would like you to consider several possibilities. I think that there are three tracks in an agile career ladder. There's the technical product-based focus track. There's the process, product outcome, um, product perspective track, and then there's the primarily culture track. So culture permeates all of these things, and I don't know, I don't yet have the good words for these. So I will ask you in a few minutes in the chat. And I want you to think about, instead of moving up, to thinking about over. How do we cross here? Is my technical leadership able to influence other people in the process or product focused area? How about does that influence people in the entire organizational culture area? So I would like you to also think about rethinking achievements via influence. How does this person help the team, help the product, help the organization? And if you want to change your career ladder, who would you have to talk to first? Because I'm not sure it's an easy discussion or decision. Um, I wrote this blog series called Career Ladder. There's a link there. I'm going to put all of these in the speaker deck, and let me stop the share for now and answer questions because I bet you have several questions. Okay, question away, people.
If I may start, this writing of guidebook, this reminded me something I was solving in my organization when it was always project, 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 work, 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 and no time for sharpening the saw. And um, I'm still thinking and looking for ways in our organization, which is heavily project organization, to create a space for it. Because if people only do work, 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 project, 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 they don't improve anything and there is no enjoyment from work. But somebody has to pay also for guidebook.
So I first started with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages, and it was all definitions, right? I transcribed what was in my engineering notebook into a word processing document because this is a very long time ago. So, how small can you start, right? Why not take the smallest thing you can do? And this is where using your influence with a product owner and to say, product owner, a couple months ago, I said we needed to put this on our backlog. And you said, no, not yet. And then a month ago, I said the same thing. And now, if we add it to every single story, we add 10 minutes to this workbook, and we develop our intellectual property for what we need to finish really great products. And we don't have this problem and this problem and this problem. If you can point to problems and you can point to the times you tried to influence, then you are much more likely to succeed. And let me ask you this question because, Oleg, I feel as if I know you, even even though we've been mostly on Zoom together. Um, you're a smart guy. Why not just do this? Right? I'm not talking about taking 2 weeks to do this. Why not do 5 minutes every day and just do it? I mean, do you really need permission to ask for to do professional work? I don't think so. And I think that this, not that I think all of us want to do professional work and we feel, especially in an agile team, that the product owner has to okay it. The product owner often does not know what he or she needs for sharpening the saw in the team. The team needs to do this themselves.
So it basically boils down to the leader encouraging this behavior, spending few minutes every day for every task, whatever, to shift a little bit forward.
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you know I'm learning how to write fiction, and learning is the operative word there. So I have a goal of writing 250 words every single day of fiction. That's it. 250 words. That's 15 minutes. That's my learning because I am not very good at this yet and I need to get better. Let's see. So Raji asks, what if people have individual performance goals? How can we enforce team collaboration to complete the same task and also make sure everyone gets their recognition? So Raji, in the blog series, I talked about this, but individual goals don't work with an agile team, right? The whole notion of performance for individual goals, you have to have a team-based goal. So if you have a team-based goal and you say to people, how did you contribute to this goal? The team, first of all, the team always knows who contributed and who did not, right? Managers might not know. In an agile team, the team always knows. I would actually say in almost any team, the team always knows. So, this business of individual performance goals are totally antithetical to an agile approach. If you have OKRs, then you can say, is the objective an overarching goal? Let's start there, and then how does a team deliver key results? But the individual performance goals, I mean, if I have in effect control over your raise and control over my raise, who am I going to optimize for? I'm going to optimize for my raise. Yeah. Other questions on these career ladders and the business of influence?
Folks, you feel free to punch in your questions in the chat, or at this point, you can just raise your hand and ask. Karen.
Okay, so I just want to say, Joanna, how piercing your points have been relative to a project I was on. And, you know, and I just wonder how many projects are like what I believe Oleg said, you know, project, work. When it's like that, you know, you take away, you don't give that psychological safety room to grow. And it's, you know, it's like this narrow focus that destroys the larger focus. And, you know, I do organizational change management, and I just want to say right on, you hit so many points that are so viable. And, you know, I did start with that, you know, just a little bit. One comment that someone made about icebreakers, I started expanding that into team building. And, you know, just thank you. Thank you so much. You did a lot of good in sharing your wisdom. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome and thank you. Yeah, I think it's really hard for people to realize that the product owner is not an order taker and the team is on an order taker from the product owner. I have many pieces of a product owner book in my brain that I need to get out at some point. But I need to. I'm working on a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, way too much. Too many books in progress. Denise, I see your hand.
So yes, my question is, um, in government, I'm a digital engineer. My role right now is a project manager, and my HR person is like, well, you're overall contractors. There's no benefit in you moving up. And I'm like, okay, so now I need to get government people. And I don't hear that I can combine my technical and my project management. I like both. I'm a certified systems engineer, but I like project management too.
So, Denise, in my experience, too much of the government has very rigid career ladders, and you will need to really decide how to progress from here, right? You might actually say, let's talk about how people need to be able to move back and forth You might start that conversation. You might enlist somebody else in helping you start that conversation, somebody who is higher up the career ladder, right? With literally more organizational influence, because you're talking about changing a well-established, from my outside perspective, quite rigid way of thinking about people and careers. You're talking about changing all of that. And I'm not, I would not do that as one person. First of all, I would read Esther Derby's seven rules for change, Esther's book about change. And the first thing she said is to gather allies, right? Read her book, figure out how can you do this where you are, because by yourself is not going to work. And then invite people to start thinking about things. Notice I had several questions in here. Do you help me? Can you help me find better words for the words I'm already using? I'm inviting you into this to think with me. And the reason I ask that is because, first of all, I treasure all of you. You got up early enough on the day after daylight savings time, and you're here on a Sunday morning. You guys are invested in this. I can learn from you. And when you start with that attitude, you are much more likely to expand your influence, because you're asking for help. You're modeling the behavior you want to see. So I think doing this yourself alone, oh, that's a way to get really frustrated. Find some like-minded people, find some people who are able to help you higher up in the organization, and then work on your specific job. I know that you have a lot of contractors. I don't remember if you are a contractor. Really think about what makes sense for you. But I think doing this yourself is not a successful way to not a successful way to succeed. There, that was English. Not, yeah. Um, let me, Sandra, you can influence without coding knowledge, but then you better have domain expertise about the product, and you better have a lot of expertise about how to help people with their process or the culture. Because in a technical organization, understanding the reasoning behind the product is really important. So let me go to Maru, because you have a hand up and you're here.
Yeah, first of all, Joanna, I'm really sorry. I had bookmarked your call, you talked, but I came 1 hour late. Time zone differences. Really sorry. So I was thinking, listening to you, I was thinking in the last 5 minutes about the tribal leadership body of knowledge. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's basically what you just explained as an answer to the last question. So I was wondering, my question would have been, how do you see that overlapping with your thinking? Because what they say is, you don't have to have the skills or the knowledge or expertise or all that things, but you can look for the tribe where you can acquire them. And that mindset change normally leads to some results. My question to you is, what do you think of that that thinking?
What, mindset change or
Tribal, looking for the tribe and acquiring the knowledge that you
oh,
think is happy forward.
so, well, to be brutally honest, I find a lot of tribe writing not very relevant. I overlap with about 50 or 60 tribes. I don't know who are my tribes. I just don't get it. So I am not the right person to ask, and I don't know about it. I probably just said something stupid. I will live with that. But finding allies to work across the organization, I'm all about that. So for me, that's not about one tribe. I don't want to split people into very discrete boundaries. I want to be able, to collaborate with people across many boundaries. And when I think about tribes, I think about discreteness, not continuous. So Maru, maybe you can email me and tell me more about that later. There was another question. Bernie asked, recently the State of Agile Coaching report was published, and a lot has been asked about the value of Agile coaching. Do you think looking at group performance could help with answering this question? So, Bernie, I don't know what you do. I'm probably going to offend you, so hang on. I see way too many Agile coaches. Right? Agile coaching is never the goal. I wrote a blog post about Agile coaching not being the goal, that business outcomes are the goal. And if we have these many coaches, why are the managers not coaching? I am pretty sure the coaches are all happening at the wrong level. Teams don't need coaches. They might need training to understand, how do we do domain-driven design? How do we do TDD? How do we do CI and CD? How do we offer each other feedback and coaching? There's lots of training that teams need, but the managers need the coaching. The symptoms might be in the teams. The signals are all coming from the management layers. If coaches are not coaching the managers, they are not reaching the people who need this. So
so that resonates with the answer, because it's being tons of questions around the community about that. And it's almost like the ones that are paying for coaches are the ones that are not getting coached. So yeah, they're gonna ask, what is the value? All right. But I was just wondering, because it triggered me thinking about performance being a group performance rather than an individual performance, because even for coaches, it's also individual performance, right? That's why it triggered me the thinking. And I totally agree with you. There are too many coaches. Not offended at all.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. Yeah. Well, I always have to be careful when I say that.
No.
Oleg, you have.
Joanna, I get pinged by a few people asking when we'll finish because they're afraid to lose it because they want to drop.
Okay.
So let's take another 5 minutes. I think, are you okay for another 5? Like we'll finish at the quarter.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. Okay.
Those people I want to ask.
Oleg. All right.
It's interesting point you're making, because I feel, at least in my context, there is huge divide between Scrum Masters and seeing managers as somebody evil and abstracting their work, instead of saying we are on the same team, we are doing the same work, it's just they didn't learn it yet, I have to teach them.
Yeah, it's what even was on the slides of Johanna, like this mutual agreement for an outcome, right? That part, the mutual part is missing.
Yep.
I have a question, so Sophia here. So regarding you, I don't want to be picky. You said on the slide 23, so it says CEO. So that means CIO. So, and I think it's even CIO level, right? I mean, it's like for all business organizations supposed to work closely with IT. So because I saw only this IT part, so I think you should more or less, I would trying to combine it. Or I'm wrong. I haven't overseen something.
Well, I was trying to just put the technical titles as opposed to across the organization.
Okay. And what about the business part? So more or less, because at least in Germany, so they're combining more or less. You have like CIO, so, and you have CEO. So, and one part is taking care of business, so another one's, and if you're starting transformation or like transition, so they have to work closely together. So, and that's why I ask, so is it are you going to put another slide, or is it all you speaking only about technical organization? You know what I mean? Because we have business as well.
I don't know. You're asking me really good questions. I need to think about that. I mean, I have the blog posts as they are. They're probably not sufficient. So, yeah, no, that's a good point. I will have to think about that. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't want to, you're welcome. So,
yeah,
I'm struggling with it at the moment, so that's why I was so curious how you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. On our last question. I think that we might be done, Jean.
Well, I'm certainly going to wrap this on a big thank you note. Joanna, thank you very much for coming out and doing this for us. It has been a great experience, great content sharing, experience sharing. Have been recording all along, so this should become available within the next couple of hours. I'm sure you're gonna, as soon as we finish, you're gonna send me your PDF or something or a link to it, so I can make it available along with the video. And I would really like to entertain. Maybe at some later point we can, pick up another challenging topic at some point in the future. So.
Well, I need to write a bunch about the performance management and promotion, performance evaluation business. So, after I write about that, I'll do another talk.
Anytime between, during or after, you're more than welcome to share your thoughts. In large-scale Scrum, I'm sure everyone understands, individual performance evaluation is considered to be one of the flaws and one of the most toxic things that have been administered to humans. And there are experiments about this in the books, also in case studies written by trainers and coaches. So that's very synergetic to what you're saying. It's not really Scrum. There's so much research on this over decades, so much gap between the business and science, right? So any insight coming from you on this subject would be very much welcome. So,
all right, thank you.
Yep. So thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Adjust your clocks, and yeah, indeed, stay in touch. Stay well, stay healthy, and stay.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, James.
Alberto, thanks for joining all the way from where you are.
Yeah, Nigeria, man.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jean, this is Maru.
Yeah, Maru. I'm gonna stop recording. Hang on 1 second. Let me just stop recording.
Okay.